And welcome into the program. This is your game plan for retirement with Northwestern Ohio's resource. Chris McIntire, president and founder of McIntire Retirement Services, keeping us on the straight and narrow, giving us that proactive guidance, what we need to be doing with our money in order to achieve our financial goals and those dreams of retirement, ladies and gentlemen. That time where you no longer have to trade your time for money. Instead, you get to enjoy your time, but it is expensive, so you've got to have some money to do it, and Chris McIntire helps us with those decisions to be as optimal as possible, to enact the strategies, avoid the risks, and achieve those financial goals. If you've got questions of any type, you're always welcome to be in touch and talk those over with Chris and the team there at McIntire Retirement Services. And Chris, we've got a number of questions that we'll talk about and tackle on today's program. These are like the most common, frequently asked questions and some of the most popular topics that we have seen across the board when we address these on the podcast and the YouTube video view numbers. People like certain topics, it seems like, and we'll tackle a few of those today.
Sounds good, buddy. Let's go.
All right. Well, again, ladies and gentlemen, if you've got questions on your mind, whether it pertains to income, investments, taxes, healthcare, legacy, or any number of financial topics, you are always welcome to be in touch once again. And the number to do that, to reach out to McIntire Retirement Services and to get your custom designed individual specific game plan for retirement, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. 800-868-1194. And Chris, I guess to premise this laundry list of topics we'll talk about today is that everybody has questions, right? Everybody has concerns. Some of us worries and anxieties about our money. It seems like we can let those linger and constantly nag us in the back of our minds, or we can sit down and address them in a defined period of time, get a plan in place, and then by and large, like those worries seem to be maybe not alleviated completely, but minimized to a great extent.
Yeah, Peter, I guess, part of our job is to, educate people, coach people, motivate people into making their, best decisions, in their given set of circumstances. And, there are people who have been in roles of making decisions throughout their working career. There are others that have not been in that role. So, you have to be able to, kind of know the personality of the person you're dealing with. And, if it's been a client for 10 years or so with us, that's certainly easier than somebody who's just become a client. We're trying to figure out, all right, what is their ways, how do they make their decisions? How do I need to present them the information so that they understand it and are, their eyes don't gloss over and they say, well, the devil I know is better than the one I don't know, as an example.
Everybody sort of reaches that saturation point, right? Like a sponge in these conversations, I suppose, Chris. It can only hold so much water. And then after that, it's a little bit of overflow. And part of your job is to gauge that with people and to discuss that. And where is your level that we want to dive into depth in this conversation to make it so that they walk away having gained and retained some knowledge. And always appreciate that on the program here. You keep it generally at a higher level, I think, but sometimes we dive down into some of the minutia and the details, and those are always interesting conversations. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this program is about you, though. Like, it's general financial information and education, discussion of some specific strategies. Don't ever apply the information unless you have consulted with an experienced, qualified professional. And that's the real value of the program, is that Chris is here to provide that resource for you, to be that resource. Give a call, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Okay, so Chris, we did a survey of the YouTube channel, and at the top of the list, perpetually, it seems like there are a few questions that are the most popular, the most watched, the most viewed on the audio podcast podcasts as well. And ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to link to any of those, if you'd like to subscribe or view the library of content, you can go to McIntireRetirementServices.com, McIntireRetirementServices.com, and all of the outlets are linked there. But at the top of the list, Chris, always Social Security. And we're going to be talking about some of the Social Security topics, but just to preview a couple of the others. Should I pay off my home early? Should I buy gold? Or when I do, what should I know? And we will talk about those and more on today's program. So let's kick it off, though, Chris, with that Social Security discussion. There seems to be a wide debate in the financial world. You should get it while the getting's good. Get it at 62, the day that you are eligible mentality. And then there is the school of thought that you should wait and delay as long as possible to claim your benefit because it maxes out and grows each year you delay up until the age 70. So talk about those two differing points of view, if you would, and then what do we need to know as we are making our decision?
Yeah, and I'd say, we can kind of break it down this way a little bit. We deal with people who have been divorced or widowed, so that's a different set of circumstances than talking about a married couple, age 65 and the other spouse is 62. Couple of different ideas there, so let's take that married couple, for example, first, and let's say they're both retired, okay? And they both retired at age 62. So the first spouse that retired at 62, which is typically a male, because men typically marry younger women, especially in that baby boom generation. Okay. And I'll throw a caveat. My wife is older than I am. So for you
Don't rub it
listeners
in,
out there,
Chris.
yep.
Gonna
And
get
she's already
yourself in
on
trouble.
Social Security too. Yeah. And let's say that spouse said, when he hit 62, he retired and his wife was continuing to work. So he did not take Social Security because he wanted to delay and get a bigger benefit, and they're living off the spouse's income, his wife's in this example. And then when she retires at 62, most likely she's going to file for benefits, and so is he now that he is 65 in this example. And then that starts getting them, pretty, let's say a good base of income. Maybe it doesn't cover everything they need, but it's lessening the amount that they would have to pull out of a 401k by delaying their Social Security until later in life. Okay. On the other side of that, for the widowed and the divorced folks that may be out there is, if your parents and grandparents, have a long life expectancy, then maybe delaying makes sense for you to do that. Okay. And you can obviously, whether you're married or widowed, you can delay taking Social Security until age 70. And that's how you would max it all out. Okay. Now, how much do you have to rob out of your 401k, or I should say withdraw out of your 401k until you hit age 70? So that equation comes into it as well. But for somebody who's widowed, and if they have typically a long life expectancy, they may want to delay. Okay. If they don't have a long life expectancy, they may want to go early because they want to get their money back out of it. So, so many different circumstances. It's hard to say, well, do this if you're married, do this if you're widowed or single. You just have different parameters in making that decision. That's probably the point I would like to stress.
Well, there is a recent article from Kiplinger, and one of the things that it points out in the article, the author states, Chris, here as they are discussing these different strategies, that if you choose to claim Social Security benefits at 62, your benefits will be reduced indefinitely, right? This is a lifetime decision, and we lock into an amount. So it's not like if we claim early at that age 62, that when we do reach our full retirement age, we get a bump up. And then when we hit 70, we get another bump up. That decision is the permanent floor for income. And yes, there are cost of living adjustments where it could increase over time with kind of a system-wide adjustment for inflation. But you personally, wherever you choose to start claiming and collecting, that is your decision for life. And Chris, to your point with the married couples, that is a decision that can have implications even beyond our own lifetime.
Yeah, without question. The timing, we have a great software program that I utilize when the clients are sitting in front of me with all the different scenarios, and it factors in the lifetime income using this strategy, the lifetime income using a different alternative strategy, if you will. Um, I just had a meeting with a gentleman that came to one of our classes that we do at the local colleges, and in his plan, he was 8 years older than his spouse. So his plan, and he's 60, going to be 65 in October, is to take Social Security at age 70, max it out because his spouse is still working. And then once she retires, then she gets to file for her benefits and he'll be 70. So I mean, that was a significant amount of income they were going to get. Okay. And then that way, if he passes away before she does, she's going to get his big benefit that he delayed getting. So, that's certainly a good strategy to look at, especially if you marry somebody who's quite a bit younger than you.
Chris, what about folks who want to continue working, and then may be considering claiming and collecting Social Security? There are different phases there where that may be uh, penalized or potentially more advantageous later on down the road. Can you talk about the combination of continuing to work and earn an income as well as collecting Social Security and making that decision?
Yeah, we get a lot of questions on this throughout the course of the year. So good point, Peter. So let's say somebody has just turned 62 and they're still working full time, making $50,000 or more. Okay. They cannot collect Social Security and make that amount of money and work full time. They would be penalized. I shouldn't say they can't collect it, but it really wouldn't make any sense for them to do so because they'd have to be paying back benefits because there's only a certain amount of income that you can make in that ballpark range of $22,000 to $24,000 this year. Sorry, I don't have the figure right in front of me.
That
You're
figure kind
working,
of adjusts each year, right?
yeah, just each year. So just figure, $24,000 this year. So if you're working part-time, okay, that's a different element there. So you may be able to claim Social Security at 62 and then make $15,000 to $20,000 in a year and not be penalized. Okay. Now, and then that would also include if you were 63, 64, 65, 66, and depending on when you're full retirement age. So Peter and I, it's 67. So the year that we turn our full retirement age, so my birthday is in April, for example. So when I turn 67 in April of whatever year that's going to be, okay, I can make a lot more money up until my birth date. I'm going to say about $50,000 this year. Okay. Once I hit my full retirement age, I can make an unlimited dollar amount. So, there are ways to work and collect Social Security. It kind of depends if you work full time or part time. So here's another one, Peter. So let's say somebody has worked to the month of June, right? We're just about coming up here in the middle part of the year right now. And somebody has made $80,000 this year. They have retired. Okay. They're 62 out and they want to take Social Security. Well, they've already made too much money that Social Security says they can make if they were working and collecting at the same time. However, they have now retired, so they don't have any income coming in. So once they retire, then they can go to the Social Security office or file online and say, I'm done working. I have no more earned income, and I'm going to collect my Social Security benefit. Okay.
A change in circumstance kind of
Yeah.
triggers that change in the criteria and that potential penalty.
Yeah, kind of depends when the paychecks stop. So, and here's another thing that you got to watch, because there's a lot of pitfalls right here. So somebody is 62 or even 65, right? And they made $80,000. They retire in the month of June and they want to file for benefits starting in July, for example. Okay. And so they're going to get their benefits in July and from every month thereafter. But let's say they get a bonus check, some sick pay that paid out or vacation pay that pays out. Well, Social Security is not going to know the day that you retired, they're going to get that information from a tax return and whatnot. So, that first year that you retire before your full retirement age is, take some detailed notes, especially if you're going to get some bonus compensation to say, look, here's when I retired, last paycheck. I got bonus pay that happened after I retired, but it was earned during my working time. So, yep, a lot of times you get what we call, Peter and I would call, a nasty gram from the Social Security Administration, says you owe us some money. And a lot of times you just have to go back in and clarify that. Yeah, they're not out to get you by any means.
No one likes those in the mail, though.
No, never.
Bottom line, Chris, we've got to pay attention. It is at full retirement age that we are deemed eligible to collect full benefits with no penalties or pullbacks if we are also earning income, right? If we do so, if we are capable, able-bodied, out working and earning an income, and are making the decision on Social Security before full retirement age, we've got to worry about those potential penalties. But after full retirement age, all bets are off. You are free and clear that if it makes sense to you, you can both work and claim and collect Social Security, right?
That is absolutely correct. And I want to go back and hit one more point here before we move on Social Security. So for those of
I've
you
got a few more.
Yeah.
I got a couple more questions.
So for those of you that want to claim it at age 62, because you've retired, remember when you hit 65 and you go on to Medicare, you're going to have that deduction for Part B of Medicare. And I think it's $174 and change here in 2024. So your benefit's going to get reduced if you claim at 62. By the time you get to 65, they're going to take some money out of there for your Medicare Part B premium.
Yep, absolutely. Got to keep that in mind. And there are income thresholds and limitations where there's potential taxation on Social Security benefits as well. I want to go back to the fact you pointed out, Chris, that you and I have our full retirement age at 67, but that it could be 66, or even for some folks, it was at 65. Now, Nikki Haley, who was in contention to be one of the nominees for the presidential race coming up, right, is she had previously made a public comment and put out some videos stating that Americans needed to be ready to face the reality that retirement age needs to be moved back. Now, that was not warmly received. That was not good news to a lot of, at least the comments and the feedback online. She did not receive rousing applause or approval for that comment. But the reality is, Chris, that the Social Security Administration has said that there's some trouble, and this is something they've done before. It used to be that retirement age was 65, and they graduated it up to 67. So I guess my question here is, in your mind, is this something that they really could consider at some point into the future? And if so, does that just emphasize that if we want to retire earlier than that, we need to do a better job of preparing for ourselves?
Yeah, I couldn't state it any better right there. Yeah, they have certainly changed Social Security in the past, and they're going to change it in the future. You could look at, when Social Security first started, the average life expectancy was 62 years old. You didn't get it until you were 65. So, now look at the average life expectancy, call it age 80, and you can start benefits as early as 62, even 60 if you're a widower. So, and it does have funding issues. The numbers don't lie. At least I'll give Nikki Haley credit, at least to talk about it, because, for how many years have both parties just want to sweep it under the rug? And while Social Security's off the table, it's like, well, maybe you ought to fix it, before the table breaks.
Indeed.
Yep.
All right. So, Chris, bottom line is that everybody needs to make a decision about Social Security when they reach this age range, and the difference in the numbers can move retirement, right? It can make a difference, a substantial difference, measurable in the income sources, the quality of life. You at McIntire Retirement Services take time specifically to run through these scenarios as you have stated. That's part of the game plan for retirement. Chris, in the Social Security component of that alone, in the reports that you generate, what kind of difference in the amount of income have you seen this make? Have you seen the difference between an optimal decision versus a suboptimal decision make over the course of retirement for an individual or a couple?
Yeah, and we certainly have, Peter, because I got a case in mind that was back when we had the old rules where you could file and suspend and claim off of a spousal benefits and all that. And I got two clients that she was able to delay and take her benefit at age 70, and so from 66 to age 70, her benefit increased 32%. I mean, that's significant, a significant amount of income. And so, yeah, we have certainly seen that. And then we've dealt with other folks like back in the 2008 financial crisis, where all of a sudden, corporations, laid off massive amounts of people, and some of them had to take Social Security at 62 because they needed the income to come in. So, that wasn't the plan, and life is what happens to plan. So, trying to build in, that's why it's so important to save and have those, contingencies in case something happens right before retirement or right after. We kind of call those are those critical years, and you can kind of call them the troubled waters or whatever you want to do.
And certainly not all of us get to retire exactly on our own intended timeline or on our own terms. So we've got to be prepared for that. That's why it's important to have these discussions early, ladies and gentlemen. If you would like to sit down, have a discussion with an experienced, qualified professional who has seen many, many different situations and helped people to optimize their unique, specific individual situation, we'll run that report for you, the Social Security Optimization Report, as part of the more comprehensive game plan for retirement, the written plan that you get. Pick up the phone, give Chris McIntire a call at McIntire Retirement Services, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. All right, Chris, I know that the interest rate environment has changed pretty dramatically over the last, let's call it 4 or 5 years. Many people strive to enter into retirement debt-free, including perhaps paying off the home mortgage. Could you give us your opinion on that? Is now the time that we need to be striving to pay off the home mortgage? If so, what do we need to be thinking about in doing so? How do you work this as part of the discussion and the planning process there at McIntire Retirement Services?
Yeah, so probably the first thing that comes to my mind, Peter, is what is the balance on the mortgage, okay? And then what is the interest rate you're paying on it? Because many of us who have a mortgage may have locked in low interest rates in the past, so it might be got 2.5% to 4%, for example, and well, heck, I can make 5% sitting in a money market right now. So do I arbitrage and say, well, instead of using the money in my money market to pay down a mortgage, why don't I make 5% on money and use the interest to pay off the loan that's at 2.5% or 3%, for example? I'm making more money using the arbitrage, we call it.
Chris, I get your point there, but I guess my thought when looking at the amortization schedule is that, yes, over the course of the full 30 years, I may end up paying the equivalent of 2.5% or 3% interest on the loan. But especially in the first 15 years, it seems like I'm paying an awful lot more than that stated interest rate.
Yeah, and you're also paying a lot more interest than you are principal. So as the loan gets closer to, maturity or being paid off, you're putting more of your loan payments are going on to the principal.
So does how far you are into the mortgage play into weighing this decision?
Oh, absolutely. Because, then you factor in, it's like, okay, I got 15 years on my mortgage to go. It's like, okay, well, if your mortgage payments is $1,000 a month, $1,000 a month times 12 months times 15 years. Okay, this is how much money you're going to be using. Do we have some other money in savings to say, look, you're coming out $80,000 ahead by paying it off right now,
Okay.
And yeah, so it certainly does, Peter. That's a good point you bring up. And I guess my mindset goes, a lot of the folks we deal with are closer to paying their mortgages off, in 3 to 5 years, basically. Yep.
So should I ever liquidate retirement dollars, specifically like the tax deferred 401k IRA retirement dollars, in order to pay off the mortgage?
Yep. And, that's a tricky answer right there, because we got a lot of people listening to the show right now. And, So you want to, what's the tax bracket you're going to be paying those dollars in? Okay. Is it going to give you that much peace of mind that knowing that you're going into retirement with my house paid off, even though I use some of my retirement dollars to do that? Because I can think of a couple of clients right now that, getting ready to retire and they really want to pay off the mortgage,
Yeah.
and just not have it. So they got to draw off of it. And we'll have more of those conversations on the interest rate versus what their earnings. And, do we accelerate it and pay it off over 3 years versus 10? That's another part of the conversation there. We're spreading the taxes out a little bit more, that type of thing too. And, how much is left, on interest versus the principal payment, buddy.
Chris, I know you're helping crunch the numbers and work the math for folks, but you hit on it there. I don't think you can ignore the peace of mind factor
Yeah.
in this decision either, can you?
Yeah.
A lot of financial decisions are probably like that.
Sure. And I include myself in that as well. I want my house to be paid off when we call it a day.
All right. All right. Well, hey, Chris, let's move on. We don't have a whole lot of time left in the program, but there is another hotly debated financial question out there. In fact, we hear the ads almost incessantly. Buy gold, buy gold, buy gold. What is the value here? Is it something that we should consider? Where do you fall in this question of whether or not it makes sense to have gold as part of our financial picture or portfolio?
Yeah, Peter, and I'm not real biased one way or another here. Gold's had a pretty good rally. It's, had a decent year here for 2024. And I guess the question is, some people want to own the physical gold, okay, and they want to have it in their safety deposit box or something. Some of the commercials that we see, there are companies that will administer it within your IRA. Look, there are some layers of expenses that come with that you might not be factoring in as well, because they're not doing that for free. They're making money off of the gold. And again, to be fair, some of those commercials don't run near the same regulations that I run in my daily practice where,
I always consider that though, Chris, is like, okay, all of these commercials, all of these high paid spokespeople, the celebrities, they are not doing this for free. I mean, it's tens of millions of dollars that goes into the marketing. Where does that money come from? Well, it comes from the people who buy it. And if the people who were selling it were so convinced that the dollar was going to collapse and be worthless and gold was going to be the safe haven, I get it. It stores and preserves value.
Yeah.
But if they were so convinced of that, why would they send me their gold and take my dollars?
That's a great analogy right there, buddy. And there's a portfolio called the permanent portfolio. And we call it the golden butterfly. So it's an allocation of 20% gold, 40% different types of bonds, 40% different types of stocks. So gold in the middle, bonds on one wing, stocks on the other wing, called the golden butterfly. Very diversified, and it's done very well over time. They call it the permanent portfolio. It's very tax efficient. So, I got clients in that. I'm not going to argue the merits of gold. I would say, there you're owning the gold on paper where, you own it in an exchange traded fund, an ETF. So you don't have the physical gold. And I just had a client, we had a nice conversation here just recently, and he had bought some physical gold. And he bought small coins because he wanted to be able, if he had to utilize those coins to redeem them for something, he didn't want a big ounce because, not everything you're going to use that ounce for is going to take the entire ounce. And what are you going to do? Carry around a saw and a digital scale?
That's how the old shave and a haircut, 2 bits, right? As they used to gnaw off little pieces of it. I don't know if that's good for the teeth or what, but you don't want to carry around too big a piece to make transactions with. And if we get to the point where gold is making the transactions, Chris, I think we've got a whole different set of scenarios to deal with.
Yeah, we absolutely do. And a lot of times I make the analogy, not here getting political, but if it got to that bad where, you'd need golds and guns.
Yeah, indeed. Well, Chris, always appreciate the time. Just a few of the most popular topics on the YouTube channel and on the podcast covered today in our montage. But there are frequently asked questions, and then there are unique, specific individual situations, ladies and gentlemen. And that's why you need the help, the assistance, the resource to consult an experienced, qualified professional. And that's why Chris McIntire here has offices across Northwestern Ohio. So many people have taken advantage of his assistance. So many more people need need to. And if you are in either of those buckets, but would like an opinion or to get a plan put together, pick up the phone, give a call, 800-868-1194. That is 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194, or visit online, McIntireRetirementServices.com, McIntireRetirementServices.com. Chris, it is always a pleasure.
Hey, good to be with you, Peter. Everybody have a nice weekend out there. Be safe.
Tune into Chris McIntire's full radio program and visit McIntireRetirementServices.com for many additional valuable resources, including other great episodes of Game Plan for Retirement with Chris McIntire. Be sure to subscribe.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor. Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services. Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.